Kyle's cover is blown and Clary gets an angel killed. Let's break down Season 3, Episode 5 of Shadowhunters right here on What Happened. What's going on, Shadowhunters family? Lisa here with a breakdown of this week's episode titled Stronger Than Heaven. Now, what I like about this episode is we get to see Jace and Simon interacting, which is always a recipe for a fun or awkward time, but usually fun, and fun in this case. It's also nice to see Jace finally trying to be good to Simon since he knows how important Simon is to Clary. Now, this episode also brings some more relationship drama for Alec and Magnus, who supposedly have only been a couple officially for less than 2 months, which is kind of hard to believe because it makes it seem like whatever's happened on this show in 3 seasons hasn't taken that much time. Because by now it feels like these two have been together for years. But I guess not, and this all causes some tension when Alec decides he wants to move in, so let's just go ahead and break down this week's episode. We'll kick it off with our lovebirds. As if Magnus and Alec couldn't get any cuter, they're sharing clothes. Like, I find that really adorable with these two, whereas some other couples I might find it like throw-up worthy, but for some reason these two make it work. As Magnus is looking at a box of keepsakes, Alec comes out wearing one of Magnus's shirts, since I guess he hasn't decided to keep any of his clothes over at Magnus's, even though he's there practically every night. Now, I wish I could use the magic that Magnus does to make those sleeves a little longer for Alec on jeans, because I can never find jeans that fit my size because I'm short, yeah. Hashtag short people problems. Anyway, this talk about the shirt leaves Alec to say maybe he should just move in, but Magnus does not like this idea. Yeah, he says maybe it's good for the future, but not right now because they've only been seeing each other for less than 2 months, even though to us, it seems like 3 years. Now, Magnus says they need to take their time and walks off, but you can bet that Alec noticed that box that Magnus was staring at, so before leaving, Alec takes another look at that box and he just cannot resist. Yeah, curiosity killed the cat. He opens it and looks at all the keepsakes, including a picture of Magnus and another man in a soldier's uniform, and there's a note on the back that says the man's name is George. Well, you know that if you don't want to get in trouble with your lover, you gotta get rid of all your ex's things, but when you're immortal, it might not be that easy. Alec is such a stand-up guy that he feels extremely guilty for going through this box, so he actually goes to Magnus and fesses up. But of course, Magnus already knows that Alec has gone through the box. Magnus kind of sort of explains who George was and asks Alec if he's jealous, and Alec thinks that maybe something with George is what made Magnus react all weird to the living together proposal. Magnus reveals that the items in the box don't just belong to George, they belong to all his ex-partners who he was in committed relationships with that he ended up outlasting because, yeah, immortal problems. He may be magical, but his memory isn't, so he doesn't want to forget them, and that's what all those keepsakes are. Now, when it comes to Alec, he doesn't want to think about the future and having to put a token of Alec in the box, and Magnus just wants to live in the here and now and with the ones that he loves. So these two end up making up. Alec gives him a kiss, and, you know, everything seems to be right with Malik again. As for Izzy, she finally decides to give that Dr. Charlie the time of day and agrees to go out to dinner with him, even though she is trying to find ways of talking herself out of it. The date goes surprisingly well until Izzy's bracelet goes off, sensing that a demon is nearby, and it's kind of like the bat signal where she has to make up a work excuse and runs off into the alley. Fortunately, she doesn't have a super suit to kind of change into. There she ends up fighting a demon sent out by Lilith. Yeah, when Lilith went to see Magnus, it was so she could get an elixir that can make a person fall out of love. Now, even though Magnus said that he doesn't recommend this elixir, he gives it to her, and now she must get a sliver of the soul of the person the intended target is in love with. So in Lilith's case, she's going to give the elixir to Jace, so she needs a sliver of Clary's soul, and that's why she sent this demon out. Well, Izzy manages to kick the demon's ass, or rather the demon's asses, since it duplicated itself. She's got quite the gash on her head after the battle, but before she can reach her stele, Charlie comes running into the alley to check on her, so Izzy quickly concocts the story that her heel broke and she fell. He then takes her to the hospital and gives her stitches, and he apologizes to her because he thinks he came on too strong, and she says that she really did have a work thing. She then realizes that he actually is a good, caring man and gives him a kiss on the cheek, and well, it looks like maybe this mundane could be good for Izzy, but not sure how well it will go considering she has to keep lying to him about what she does for work and her family and everything. But Izzy does deserve some good love, so we'll see how this turns out. Charlie better not turn out to be someone evil. As far as Simon goes, he ends up learning the truth about his new roomie, Kyle, thanks to some help from Jace. Jace tells Clary that he's thinking of going to the Silent Brothers to get some help, but Clary wants him to hold off to see if maybe the angels can help. So while he waits for Clary to do whatever she's gonna do, he decides to go to the bar for some day drinking, where he runs into Simon, who's yelling at an employee because his manager supposedly called and canceled his gig. But the thing is, Simon doesn't even have a manager. Simon thinks it's basically any of the numerous people who hate him at the moment that canceled the gig. Jace decides he's going to take it upon himself to figure out who did this to Simon. Jace then shows up to Simon's apartment and is greeted by Kyle, who excuses himself to run to the bodega. Jace looks around the apartment and listens to Simon's story about Kyle, but it all seems very fishy to Jace. So Jace ends up breaking into Kyle's bedroom and finds wolfsbane on the windowsill. Kyle returns home and Jace demands answers. Kyle ends up fessing up that he's a werewolf from the Praetor Lupus, a secret organization of werewolves who are guardians and only intervene in special downworld cases like the mark on Simon's forehead blasting people to bits. Well, not quite blasting people to bits, but it possibly could. Now, the apartment was designed for Simon, so he would stay there. Now Simon knows that Kyle is also the one who canceled his gig, and he is pissed and does not want to live there, so he heads back to his precious van. Now, Simon's sitting outside his van playing the guitar when someone comes up and actually gives him a tip.
Whoa.
I was just trying to help the homeless.
Yeah, very funny.
I really do love these two together, and I'm glad we got a lot of them in this episode, and I'm hoping there's more of that sprinkled throughout the rest of the season. Anyway, Jace basically says that Simon would kind of be a fool to not take the free help that's being offered to him, so Simon returns to the apartment to get his keyboard because he got his gig back, and he's willing to give Kyle a chance, but only on Simon's terms, which means he's still gonna live his life. Simon ends up playing his gig with Kyle, keeping a close eye on the crowd. Now, what's interesting here is that Maya isn't there at the show. Like, first, doesn't she work at this bar? I think it's the same bar she works at. And second, she's Simon's girlfriend, so shouldn't she be there, like, cheering him on for his gig? Maybe she's there, but we just don't see her in this episode, and maybe we will in the next episode if this scene picks up in the same kind of place, which will prove to be interesting for those of you who read the books and know just who this Kyle guy is. Lastly, let's talk about Clary. She goes to seek help from Luke because she needs to talk to Cleophas because she thinks Cleophas can help her call in the angels to find out how to help Jace. She spills the beans to Luke about everything, and they portal to Luke's farmhouse where Cleophas has been staying. Now, Cleophas says she's tried to communicate with the angels, but there's been no answer, so she's useless, but maybe Clary can call upon them since Ithuriel's blood runs through her. Now, it's a big risk, and Ithuriel could be mad at her, but Clary's willing to take this risk because it's for Jace. So Luke and Cleophas take Clary out into the woods and get her set up with what she needs to call upon Ithuriel. They leave her, and Clary is able to call upon the angel, who is not actually mad. He knows what's happened, and Clary asks if what's happened to Jace is because of what she did. He says no, but returning from death made Jace vulnerable, and a new evil has arrived in the realm, the Owl's master. But before he can say the name of the master, someone or something reaches through his back and rips out his heart. And it is indeed Lilith, who shed her earthly form to take on her flying form to track down Clary herself, so she ended up killing Ithuriel and taking a sliver of Clary's soul that she needed. This lady is ruthless. Lilith then shows up at the bar and asks Jace to get her a drink since he doesn't recognize her. While he's distracted, she pours the elixir in his drink, and now he's fully in her command and feels like a new man. Now, before this happened, though, Jace told Alec that he was going to go see the Silent Brothers to get help, so I'm guessing that plan is now on hold. And that wraps up the main events of this week's episode. For now, Magnus and Alec are going to take things slow and not moving together. Simon now knows the truth, or rather, most of the truth about his roommate, and hey, built-in bodyguard for free and a really sick apartment. I would take that gig in a heartbeat. Clary's now gotten Ithuriel killed, which I have a feeling will have some major consequences, and Lilith now has Jace under her full control because that elixir erases everything he's ever felt for Clary. Yeah, that's going to make things super awkward when Clary returns to the Institute, and I have a feeling things will now get super interesting as the season goes on, so let's take a look at the promo for the next episode.
This is all just because you're the only guy I've ever been with.
You're putting words in my mouth.
I'm not a child, Magnus.
Then stop acting like one.
When I'm done using you, you will return to find your friends dead and your world on fire. Now kiss me.
Oh, drama, drama, drama next episode. Looks like Magnus and Alec actually aren't in the clear, and their lover quarrels are just heating up, and Lilith, yeah, just gets creepier and creepier. According to the synopsis for the next episode, we also get Clary and Magnus teaming up to investigate a demon attack, and Simon getting a visit from Heidi, who might not leave him alone, Izzy with a family dinner, and all this kind of good stuff. As I said before, I really do love all the stuff in this episode between Jace and Simon, and I do like this Kyle guy. I think Chai Hansen is doing a great job with him, and I really want to learn more about him as a character, which is a good sign. I also hope this season isn't just made up of Alec and Magnus quarreling the whole time, because I love them and I know there has to be some tension in their relationship, but I just want them to be happy for a bit. Like, I feel like Clary and Jace have enough problems, and Simon and Maya off and on with problems. I don't need all three couples to be having problems. I don't know, but I've also said that I'm not a huge fan of Clary and Jace's storyline so far this season, or them maybe in general. I don't know, but it was nice to see them split apart, going on their own things, even though the real reason for Clary doing her mission was for Jace. Now I want to hear from you. Hit up the comments and let me know your favorite parts of this week's episode. What consequences, if any, do you think Clary will face? Will Lilith really have her way with Jace? Let me know, then click right over here for my recap of Rise this week, or my interview with Lucy Hale and Tyler Posey for their movie Truth or Dare. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you like what you see. My name's Lisa. Thanks so much for hanging out with me.